Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Fan Appreciation Month here on Reaction and Review. Tonight, guys, I'm taking a look at a science fiction movie from 2009. That movie is Mega Shark vs. Giant Octopus. Now, I would like to say that I'm going into this thing with all of the optimism and positivity I possibly could, but it's got two things going against it before I even push play. Number one, it is from the Asylum, and the Asylum is barely able to even accidentally stumble into making a good movie. So we have that problem going for it. Number two, and this here is just more of a personal bias, I hate any movie which has to do with sharks, because sharks are in no way threatening. In fact, I just honestly find using sharks as just being the laziest thing you can do when making a movie. So frankly, I'm kind of going into this thing with a massive anti-fucking shark bias, but hey, this thing might still be good. I totally understand it probably won't be, but goddammit, I have to have at least a little bit of positivity, or else I'm not going to push play. But hey, like I said, it might still be good. It's doubtful, but it just might be. But the only way I'm going to find out is if I shut up and I push play, and I'm going to do that right now. So, without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out Mega Shark vs. Giant Octopus. Okay, now, wait a moment here. I honestly am no expert when it comes to cold temperatures, but I could have sworn that even off of the Alaskan coast, it takes a while for water to freeze. Yet the Mega Shark and the Giant Octopus were both frozen in the same glacier, and they look to be in mid-fight. Which means that they either were having the slowest fight in the history of anything, or the people who wrote this have no fucking clue as to how ice is formed. But considering the studio, I'm going to shoot for the latter in that case. Okay, you know, now this whole thing about the shark jumping out of the ocean and bringing down a jumbo jet should by all rights be awesome. And it would have been really cool if the effects weren't absolute shit. And I mean, guys, the fucking CG in that shot was bad, even by freaking Asylum standards, okay? Wait. So these guys think that the best strategy to isolate and contain these two giant beasts, which are wreaking havoc in the ocean, is to trap them in two of the most populated bays on the planet. San Francisco Bay or Tokyo Bay. I'm sorry, but I kind of thought you'd want to isolate them and not risk millions of lives, but then again, I have a fucking brain and the asshole who wrote this didn't. Well, I think it's safe to say that trying to capture the shark in San Francisco Bay was an absolute failure. Did I not say that that was an absolutely retarded plan from the very fucking beginning? I did. So, yeah, I called it. I fucking knew that it was going to fail. I didn't think it was going to fail that badly. But, yeah, that entire mission was fucking dumb as shit. I just wanted to let you guys know. Alright, you know, I really don't think that quoting Julius Caesar is really your best option when trying to capture and force two giant killer animals to destroy each other. Because last time I checked, a lot of people wound up dead by the time that Julius Caesar was done. You know, doesn't that seem a little bit like foreboding to anybody else? Well, guys, that was Mega Shark vs. Giant Octopus, and, well, that was Mega Shark vs. Giant Octopus. Let me just shut that garbage off. Okay, alright. Well, It's not quite as bad as I thought it was going to be, but then again, I was setting my expectations incredibly low. Uh, just sort of want to make that point clear before I start like nailing the movie itself. At least it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It still means it's bad. Let me just make that clear as well. So, writing. The writing. Here is really the spot where I thought that the writing would have at least been somewhat passable, but no, the writing in this movie is absolutely criminal. I'd like to say right now that there are huge moments in this movie where logic just seems to vanish, and everybody's just sort of left wondering why. All right, a real good example is this. When two of our scientists were forced into a romantic subplot, specifically so that way they can figure out that they could use pheromones, because they were discussing pheromones after having sex, because, you know, everybody talks about pheromones after banging. They decided that if they were able to create pheromones for these two ancient sea creatures, because fuck, you know, you can just make that shit in a lab with no problems at all. They could use those as lures to try to get the two monsters into areas where they could capture them. And naturally, you know, why not do them in Tokyo Bay and in San Francisco Bay? Which both fail miserably, but of course, if anybody actually thought that that shit was going to work, then they are probably as ditzy as the fool who wrote this thing. But see, they're able to synthesize a single bright glowing green pheromone that apparently works for both the you know, shark, or my fault, it is actually a megalodon, or the giant octopus. It basically seems to be like a universal pheromone that works for both. And it glows bright green as if it were the serum from Reanimator. I don't know why, and really, I don't much care. And of course, both those lead to massive losses of life. So then they decide, hey, what if we happen to just use the pheromones and we get them to fight in the middle of the ocean where they can't kill anyone? I'm wondering why that wasn't their first fucking plan before, you know, going and endangering the lives of millions of both American and Japanese citizens. But hey, again, that's because I have a functional brain and the person who wrote this didn't. There are big lapses in logic, like, you know, that, which they just don't work. And you are going to spend most of this movie just sitting there going, why the hell are they doing this? What sense does this make? Nothing here is done or works the way it should. And thus it's going to pull the viewer out, unless they honestly think that the funniest thing in the world is a gigantic shark jumping out of the ocean and biting a jumbo jet in fucking midair, which would have looked awesome if it wasn't for the horrible special effects, but I'll get to the special effects in just a second. But the writing here is one of the most criminal sins this movie has, because none of it is any good at all. I was kind of expecting at least a halfway passable story, and we couldn't even get that. I was hoping for dialogue which sounded natural, and we couldn't get that. Everything here in terms of writing was an absolute disaster, and it's going to keep you from enjoying this thing in any way. Now, shockingly, with writing that is that absolutely abysmal, the acting is good for the most part. I do have to say, when it comes to most of our starring cast, such as Debbie Gibson and Lorenzo Lamas, those guys know what the fuck they are doing, and they actually turn in a halfway decent showing. In fact, all four of our stars all turn in a halfway decent showing. Well, except for the guy playing the Japanese scientist, because, well, if he's supposed to be native born from, you know, Japan, having some form of a Japanese accent might have helped in terms of realism. While I'm on the subject, when you have an entire sub which is full of Japanese sailors, and only one of them has a noticeable Japanese accent, and the rest of them all sound as if they came from fucking Wisconsin, that is not a good way to go. Alright, when all of them have the same accent or lack, you know, thereof of me, and they're all on the same damn ship, and then there's one guy who basically sounds as if he came right out of Tokyo, that really fucks with a viewer's head, okay? if you have a boat and they're all people from the same country, it would help if they all had a universal accent, or at least something close to. You know, it would really help out your movie. But of course, we are talking about a studio which doesn't care about quality, they just basically want to shit out movies as fast as possible and hope and pray that morons watch them before they find out that they are absolute shit. Or in my case, sit down and watch it knowing full well that it is going to be shit, and really just trying to figure out how shitty it's going to be. But yeah, our main cast did a really good job. Everybody else phoned it in. So we got like 4 actors technically who know what the fuck they were doing and turned in a halfway decent showing. Everybody else absolutely sucked. The rest of the cast renders this horrible writing worse, because, guys, I'm going to tell you, horrible dialogue sounds even worse when coming from bad actors. It really does. Let's just make that point abundantly clear right now. So, we had writing that was some of the worst I've seen. Acting which barring our 4 stars was just as bad. What about special effects? Well, this is from the Asylum, so of course special effects are an absolute joke, which is a bad thing considering the fact that this movie is very heavy on special effects. So we have a shark who looks like shit. We have a giant octopus which looks like shit. We have a whole fleet of U.S. subs, or well, I'm going to assume a fleet because they call it a fleet, but it's only 5 subs, which basically just look like the exact same sub, just like copied and pasted a couple of times with every single exact same marking and ding, which doesn't really look good because it now just sort of looks as if the U.S. Navy is cloning subs. Yeah, we have mini-subs, at least 2 different mini-subs, which have the exact same name, exact same markings, and they both take damage in the exact same spot because they recycled the shot from earlier in the film. Because the special effects team who made this, whose name was Tiny Juggernaut, don't know how to do special effects well and are going to have to recycle shit in order to make it work. But, of course, that's probably because when they were asked to work on this movie, the fucking Asylum probably gave him about $50 and said, make, do. So, really, I cannot blame it entirely on them. I can probably blame it on the ultra-low budget of this, but still, even with a low budget, you should have been able to have at least done something decent, and they couldn't even achieve that. Special effects here are absolutely hideous. We have some awesome shots. Such as, what could have been awesome shots, such as when the shark takes a giant bite out of the Golden Gate Bridge, or when he pulls down that jet. Those would have looked fantastic if they were in the hands of a competent effects team, or maybe an effects team who had some level of a budget. Instead, they look terrible, and they turn a bad movie into even more of a fucking joke. It's just bad. And I mentioned recycling shots. When they do establishing shots for, let's see, battleships, submarines, and the outside of a U.S. naval base, they recycle shots. So every time that they are showing you an establishing shot of Treasure Island, which I didn't know that was the name of the U.S. naval, or the main U.S. naval base, you always see the exact same 2 soldiers standing in the same spot, swaying in the same way, because they could only get their second unit to film it once. And damn it, we're going to use it as many times as they fucking needed to. And it makes the movie look incredibly cheap. Camera work beyond that is okay. I would like to talk about editing, though, for just a sec. Mind you guys, yeah, like, camera work is good. Camera work is nothing special, but it works. The editing. Do you want to know how this movie tries to build up tension? I'll tell you how it tries to build up tension. By having the screen flash white, and suddenly everything's in black and white for about a second. Then it flashes white and then it's back in color. Or things freeze frame and then flash frame into the next shot. It's bad. It's horrible editing, and it doesn't help boost the tension, and it doesn't help make your film look good. It makes your film look absolutely amateurish and shit, and it basically looks as if a 4-year-old basically took your footage and mangled it in Windows Movie Maker, okay? You shouldn't have done that, and again, it takes a bad movie and makes it even fucking worse. Sound mix? I do not remember a single piece of music in this entire movie, so the entire score is absolutely gettable. But then again, I have a feeling that shortly after I finish filming this, I'm going to have completely forgotten every worthless frame of this shitty thing. So yeah, guys, when all is said and done, am I able to recommend Mega Shark vs. Giant Octopus? No. In fact, good God, this is quite possibly the worst thing I've ever seen from the Asylum, and that's saying a lot. This movie was a disaster, and I don't even think that people who are really into like shark-based thrillers and what have you are going to like this. It is that bad. It is that vapid. It is that stupid. This movie has no soul. This movie has no brain. This is by far one of the dumbest things I've watched this year. But then again, I really think I'm taking this a little bit harder because the last 5 movies I covered were all good. And then this fucking thing comes and shits on my shoes. It's not exactly a fun experience. Now, because this is Fan Appreciation Month, Mega Shark vs. Giant Octopus came off the Amazon wishlist. The guy who sent it in is named Jacob, and he wants me to promote his DeviantArt page. You guys can hit that up by going to jacobkaiju.deviantart.com. I will put a link to that in this video's description. Swing over there, guys. Check it out. And Jacob, thank you, because I was always curious exactly how bad this thing was going to be, and thanks to you, I found out that, yeah, it's pretty fucking bad. In fact, even though I said earlier it really wasn't as bad as I thought. That's partially because the 4 main stars could actually act, and they actually tried to make this thing work. But now, honestly, that I've listed off everything, it is exactly as bad as I thought it was gonna fucking be. This thing was fucking hideous, and frankly, I'm happy I never have to watch it again. That thing was fucking torturous. But yes, once more, Jacob, thank you. Guys, could you please swing over to his, DeviantArt page and check out everything he has, and if you happen to like what he has there, let him know. So yes, guys, with that, we come to the close of another reaction and review. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care, and I will see you all in the near future. Peace.